Assalamu alaikum and a very pleasant morning, girls. Now we are going to see the Glass Menageries, scene 6. Okay, in the previous scene we have come to know that Tom has invited O'Connor, there is a suitor for Laura, at dinner, right? Yes or no? And he hides the truth that Laura is disabled. Okay, like because Laura's leg is okay. Yes or no, girls? Okay. Now we are going to see, that is scene 6. In that, character of Jim, Amanda's preparation to receive Jim, Laura welcomes Jim, Laura becomes ill. Here, character of Jim. Tom tells about Jim to the audience. Star, good athlete, singer, debater, and a leader. Friendship with Jim. Jim called Tom as a Shakespeare. Here, we can say that the Glass Menageries 6th scene is a part 2. Okay. Here, 6th and the 7th scene are from part 2 of the Glass Menagerie. The scene begins with the projection of the image, high school hero, on the screen. Tom appears as a narrator and gives his comments on Jim O'Connor. Now here again Tom appears as a narrator. Okay. And he says about the he gives some comments on Jim O'Connor. Okay. Can you get my points, girls? Okay. Then, after informing us that he had brought Jim home to dinner, now he informs us that he has brought Jim home to dinner. He describes his acquaintance with Jim and his past. Tom has known Jim slightly in high school. In high school, Jim was a hero of a sort. He had a tremendous Irish good nature and vitality with a scrubbed and polished look of chinaware. He seemed to move in a continual spotlight. He was a star in basketball, captain of the debating club, president of the senior class and the glee club, and he sang the male lead in the annual light opera. He was always running or bounding, never just walking. He seemed always at the point of defeating the law of gravity. Okay, now Tom is detailedly describing about Jim O'Connor. Okay, and he says that he know him slightly in high school. Jim was a hero at that time and he was having Irish good nature and vitality with the scrubbed and polished look of chinaware. Okay, it seemed to move a continual spotlight. He was a star in basketball. Okay, captain of debating club, president of the senior class and the glee club, and he is also a singer. Okay, male lead in the annual light opera. Is it clear? He was always running and chasing, bounding something. He never just walking. Okay, he seemed always at the point of defeating the law of gravity. He was shooting with such velocity through his adolescence that one would logically accept him to arrive at nothing short of the White House by the time he was 30. But Jim apparently ran into more inference after his graduation from the high school at Salton. His speed had definitely slowed. 6 years after he left high school, Jim was holding a job at a warehouse that was not much better than Tom's. Tom continues his narration and tells us about Jim as his co-worker at the warehouse. Okay, now Tom is continuing his narration and he tells that Jim and he is a co-worker at the warehouse. Jim was the only one with whom Tom was on friendly terms. Tom was valuable to Jim as someone who could remember his former glory, who had seen him win basketball games and the silver cup in debating. Jim knew of Tom's secret practice of withdrawing to a cabinet of the washroom to work on poems when business was slack in the warehouse. Jim used to call Tom as Shakespeare, while the other boy in the warehouse regarded Tom with suspicious enmity. Jim took a humorous attitude towards him. By his attitude influenced the others, and their hostility towards Tom disappeared, and they also began to smile at him as people smile at an oddly fashioned dog that trots across their path at some distance. Now, Tom knew that Jim and Laura had known each other at Salden. Now, he continues his narration and he thinks that Laura and Jim also known to each other because of the school, in a school time, and he had heard Laura speak admiringly of Jim's voice. That is, Laura admires Jim's voice. He was not sure if Jim remembered her or not. In high school, Laura had been as shy and reserved as Jim had been pushing and popular. Now Tom is telling that I don't think so Jim is remembering Laura, because Laura is very shy type and reserved person, as in the and at his opposite Jim had been pushing and popular. If he remembered Laura, it was not as Tom's sister. For when Tom asked him to dinner, Jim grinned and said that he had never thought of Shakespeare, Tom, as having relatives. He was about to discover that I did have relatives. Okay. We have now the light flashed out stage. Upstairs, the legend on the screen, the ascent of a coming foot appears. It is Friday evening. It is about 5 o'clock of a late spring evening, which comes scattering poems in the sky. A delicate lemony light is in the Wingfield apartment. Amanda has worked like a Turk in the preparation for the gentleman caller. The results are marvelous. The new floor lamp with its rose silk shade is in place. A colored paper lantern conceals the broken light fixture in the ceiling. Now billowing white curtains are at the windows. Chintz covers are on the chairs and sofas. A pair of new sofa pillows make their first appearance. Open boxes and tissue papers are scattered on the floor. Laura stands in the middle with lifted arm, while Amanda crouches before her, adjusting the hem of a new dress. Devout and ritualistic, the dress is colored and designed by memory. The arrangement of Laura's hair is changed. It is softer and more becoming. A fragile, unearthly prettiness has come out in Laura. She is a piece of transparent glass touched by light, given a momentary radiance, not actual, not lasting. Now, what happens? Now everything has changed. The lamp has changed, the sofa covers has changed, pillow has come, and everything is new. Okay, and Laura's attire is also changed. Okay, her hairstyle, her appearance, her dress, everything is designed in memory. Okay, As Amanda is making Laura presentable to the gentleman caller, Laura is trembling and Amanda becomes impatient with her and asks her why she is trembling like this. Laura tells her that she has made her nervous by making a lot of fuss about her appearance and all and making it seem as so important. Amanda admonishes Laura, saying that she really does not understand her. Now, as Amanda is making Laura presentable to the gentleman caller, that is to Jim O'Connor, Laura becomes very nervous because she is trembling. She is nervous. That is, Amanda is asking why you are very impatient and why you are trembling, why you are doing like this. That time Laura is telling, you have changed many things in her appearance, so she is trembling now. Is it clear? For that, Amanda admonishes Laura, saying that she really does not understand her. Okay, she could not be satisfied with just sitting at home, and whenever she tries to arrange something for her, she seems to resist it. Amanda now gets up and asks Laura to take a look at her at the mirror. Suddenly, Amanda is reminded of something and she asks Laura to wait just for a moment, for she has an idea. Growing restless, Laura asks her what is now that she wants to do with her. Without minding Laura's comments, Amanda takes 2 powder puffs, wraps them in handkerchiefs, and stuffs them in Laura's bosom. As Laura feels awkward, Amanda tells her that these are called gay deceivers. Laura says that she will not wear them and wants to know from her mother why should she wear them. Amanda tells her Laura that she has to wear them because, to be painfully honest, her chest is flat. Laura protests to her mother, saying that she is making it appear that they are setting a trap for the visitor Jim. Amanda tells Laura that all pretty girls are set as a trap to ensnare men. Now, she's making Laura to get ready and as a presentable thing. Okay, so Laura doesn't like all those things which Amanda is doing for her, and she is asking Amanda that we are making a trap to a gentleman. For that also, Amanda replies that every girl set as a trap to a man. At this point, the legend, a pretty trap, is flashed on the screen. She then asks Laura to have a look at herself in the mirror now, and she will find herself never looking so splendid and pretty as she does now. Amanda then tells Laura that she has to fix herself now. Laura is going to be surprised by her mother's appearance. She crosses through the porches humming a tune gaily. Laura moves slowly to the long mirror and stares solemnly at herself. A wind blows the white curtains inward in a slow, graceful motion and with a faint, sorrowful sigh. Amanda speaks off stage that it is not enough yet. Laura turns slowly before the mirror with a troubled look. Then we have the following legend on screen. This is my sister, celebrate her with strings, music. Now, Amanda tells Laura to see her in the mirror, and she's telling that you have never seen her as pretty as now, and she's telling, and she goes to change her clothes. Okay, at that time she is she's standing and seeing her in front of the mirror, and she is amazed, she's shocked to see her. And in the off stage, Amanda says that it is not enough, and we hear the music, and so that is Tom is telling, this is my sister, celebrate her with string, and music starts. Amanda, brimming with laughter, tells Laura that she is going to show her something. She is going to make a spectacular appearance. Laura asks her mother what it is. Amanda counsels patience to Laura, and she will see something spectacular, which she has resurrected from that old trunk of hers. Though years have passed by, styles have not changed so much. She parts the portraits. She asks Laura to look at her mother. She wears a girlish frock of yellowed voile with a blue silk slash. Here you can see. She carries a bunch of jonquils. Amanda's memories of her youthful glories are arrived. She tells Laura frequently that this is the dress in which she led the cotillion, won the cakewalk, twice at Sunset Hill. Now, in the meantime, Amanda tells that Jim O'Connor has come for dinner. At that time, Laura becomes like unconscious, okay, because she remembers and she recollects her past memory that she has a crush on Jim, okay. Now, Laura faintly makes an effort to recall that name. At this point, that ominous music is played. Laura is asking her mother if she is sure that his name is Jim O'Connor. Amanda tells her that she is pretty sure about that. She asks Laura why she is asking this question. Now, after hearing that, Amanda is asking Laura, why are you asking this question? Laura again asks her mother whether he is the one that Tom used to know in high school. Amanda tells her that did not say so. She thinks that he just got to know Jim at the warehouse. Then Laura points to her mother that there was a Jim O'Connor they both knew in high school. If that is the one that Tom is bringing to dinner, Amanda has to excuse her, for she will not come to the table. Now, she is telling that her brother brought him to dinner, okay, and Amanda tells her that he knows him from the warehouse, okay, but for that Laura is telling that, pointing her mother, if there was a Jim O'Connor to whom they knew in the high school, if that's so, Amanda should excuse her, for she will not come to the table. That is, she is telling to her mother that she will not join in the dinner table. Okay. Amanda becomes angry with Laura and admonishes her to behave and says that she does not intend to humor her silliness. She sternly instructs her to answer the door without any fuss when Tom and Jim arrive, as she will be busy in the kitchen, for she has to go to fix the dressing for the salmon. Laura protests and wants to be excused, but Amanda sticks to her guns. She goes to the kitchen and Laura is left alone. Now, by hearing so, Amanda becomes very angry. Yes, of course, by doing all those things, she has done everything, right? Yes or no? So she becomes very angry and strictly she wants that Laura has to answer the door and she has to bring them to the dinner table, as she is busy, as Amanda is busy in the kitchen. Is it clear? Now Amanda goes to the kitchen and Laura is left alone in the hall. Is it clear, ma? Okay. Then the legend terror is flashed on the screen. Laura becomes stiff and nervous and sits at the edge of the sofa. After turning the lamp off, At this point, the legend on the screen, the opening of the door, is flashed. Tom and Jim arrive at the landing. Hearing their approach, Laura raises with a panicky gesture. Tom rings the doorbell and Laura catches her breath and touches her throat. The music band plays low drums. Laura is too frightened to open the door. Amanda from the kitchen repeatedly directs Laura to answer the door and let in her brother Tom and their guest Jim. But Laura pleads with her mother that she had better go and answer the door. Amanda finally commands Laura to obey her instructions and let in Tom and Jim without any further ado because she cannot. Laura tells Amanda that she too cannot either go for she is sick. Amanda becomes vexed and says that she too is sick of Laura's nonsense. She cannot understand why Laura and Tom cannot be normal people like others. She is fed up with the fantastic whims and behavior of Laura and Tom. She cannot understand why Laura should be afraid to open a door. In the meantime, Tom gives a long ring. She asks Laura to answer the door without any further delay, as Tom and Jim are kept waiting. But Laura darts to the Victrola and wends in frantically and turns a knot. Amanda now commands Laura to march right to the door. Laura, picking up a little strength, goes to the door and draws it cautiously open. That is, in a horror, she is sitting in the edge of the sofa, and by that time, a doorbell rings. The opening of a door. Tom and Jim arrive at the landing. Hearing their approach, Laura raises with a panicky gesture. She is frightened. Okay, and Amanda is instructing her from kitchen. Repeatedly, she is directing her to open the door, but Laura refuses to open, and she asks Amanda to come and open the door. But Amanda is warning her to open the door, and she is telling she is vexed and she is fed up with Tom and Laura, why they are not behaving like a normal people. And at many time, Laura comes and she is picking up a little strength, goes to the door and draws it cautiously open. Tom enters with a gentleman caller, Jim O'Connor. Tom introduces Jim and Laura to each other. Jim tells Tom that he did not know that Tom had a sister. Laura asks him, "How do you do?" And Jim says, "Okay," and heartily extends his hand to her. Laura touches it hesitantly with hers. Jim observes to Laura that her hand is cold. Laura attributes it to her playing the Victrola. Now she is opening the door. Tom and the gentleman, Jim O'Connor, enters their home, and Tom introduces Jim and Laura to each other, and Jim tells that I don't know that Tom had a sister. Okay, and Laura is asking Jim, "How do you do?" And Jim says, "Okay," and he extends his hand. That time he comes to know that Laura has become very cold. Okay, and a warm music played. Tom thinks that she has been playing classical music on it. She ought to play a little hot swing music to warm her up. She wants to be excused and darts like a frightened deer to her room, saying that she has not finished playing the Victrola. Jim asks Tom what the matter was with Laura, and Tom tells him that his sister Laura is terribly shy. Jim thinks that it is unusual to meet a shy girl nowadays. He does not think that Tom ever mentioned that he had a sister. Tom tells Jim that he can now know that for sure. Tom then asks Jim if he likes to go through a piece of the newspaper. The Post Dispatch, and if he is interested in the comics or what else. Jim says that he will have a sports piece. He scans through the piece and comments on the bad performance of the sports. Tom lights a cigarette and moves to the fire escape door, and Jim asks him where he is going. Tom tells him that he is going to the terrace. Jim follows Tom and begins to sell him a course of public speaking, which Jim is pursuing now. He points out to Tom are not cut out from the warehouse job. That is, I am talking public speaking classes to become an executive. Jim is talking to Tom. Whenever I pick up a shoe, I shudder a little, thinking how short life is and what I am doing. Jim then tells Tom that Miss Mendoza and the warehouse was talking about him. Tom asks Jim if he was talking favorably for him. Then Jim tells Tom he was telling that if Tom did not wake up, he was going to be out of job. Tom tells Jim that himself is planning to change. Jim observes that Tom does not show any signs of changing his job. Tom replies Jim that his plans of change are within his mind. The image on the screen, the sailing vessel with Jolly Roger, again is flashed and indicates that Tom is soon going to join the merchant marine. He tells Jim that he is right on the point. Committing himself to the future does not include the warehouse and Mr. Mendoza, or even a night school course in public speaking. Jim cannot understand what Tom is gassing about. Tom tells Jim that he is tired of the movies and everything. Amanda learns that Tom and Jim are on the terrace, and Tom and Jim move inside. Now they are talking about the career, that is the high school or public speaking or changing of the job, etc. And Amanda comes to know that they are in the terrace, and as she goes, they moves inside. As Amanda advances towards them, Tom is distinctly shocked by the girlish appearance of his mother. That is the appearance you can see here. Tom is very shocked by seeing his mother. Even Jim blinks a little. He is making his first contact with girlish southern vivacity, and in spite of the night school course in public speaking, he is somewhat thrown off and beam of the unexpected outlay of social charm. Jim attempts certain responses, but Amanda's gay laughter and chatter sweep them aside. Tom is embarrassed, but after the first shock, Jim reacts very warmly. Amanda, coyly smiling and shaking her girlish ringlets, tells Tom that no introduction is necessary for Mr. O'Connor. She tells Jim that she has heard so much about him from her boy, Tom, that she finally said to him why he does not bring this paragon to supper, for she would like to meet his nice young man at the warehouse, instead of just hearing Tom sing his praise to so much. But by seeing the appearance of his mother, Tom becomes embarrassed, and shocked. As Amanda appears in the scene, enters the scene, she praises Laura to Jim. Amanda sends to call Laura for dinner. Laura tells that she is ill. Amanda made her to sleep in sofa. Tom and Jim takes their dinner. Laura takes rest, and she is trying to control her tears. Now, meanwhile, Tom brings the information that is ready, but Laura is not feeling well and will not be able to join them at the table. But Amanda is bent on having her at the table and calls her repeatedly. She tells her that she is keeping all of them waiting and they cannot say grace until she comes to the table. That is, they will not start eating until she comes and joins them. Okay. The legend terror is flashed on the screen. Outside, summer's storm is coming abruptly. The white curtains below, inward, and the windows are there. Sorrowful murmur and deep blue dusk. Laura suddenly stumbles. She catches at a chair with faint moan. Both Tom and Amanda becomes panicky because of the behavior of Laura. So Amanda asks Tom to help Laura to the living room and advises Laura to rest in the sofa. She then turns to Jim, the gentleman caller, and explains the sickness of Laura to her standing over the hot stove in the kitchen. She then asks Tom if Laura is alright and Tom that she is. In the meantime, a nice cool rain begins and she gives Jim a frightened look. She asks Tom to say grace. The scene dims out with Tom saying grace. For this all thy mercies, God's holy name be praised. That is, by saying so, they started having dinner. Okay guys, by this your sixth scene has ended. Tomorrow we're going to see that is the seventh scene, the final scene. Okay. If you have any doubts, please do ask us. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz.